All right, so we are live right now. And hello, viewers, welcome to the program. My name is Lovejoy. Welcome to your program, the first program of the year. The program is Meet the Press with Lovejoy. And on the program, as always, we try to talk about everything and we invite everyone to share their stories with us. And today, we are fortunate enough to be inviting Professor Solwayo Ngwenya. I hope I got that right. I hope I didn't mess it up. I hate messing up people's names. Professor Solwayo Ngwenya is a medical expert. I'll let him introduce himself fully because I don't want to mess up his title. He carries a very, very heavy title. Say, welcome to the program. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you. And to your listeners as well. My name, as you said, is Professor Solwayo Ngwenya. I'm the acting CEO of Mpilo Central Hospital. I'm also CEO of Royal Women's Clinic here. And I work as a clinician as well, both in managerial and clinical work. I'm also an academic with a local university here of National University of Science and Technology.
All right. Thank you so much for coming to the show. I know it was short notice, but you answered to my call. The reason why I invited you to the show is we're in the middle of a pandemic, which is taking lives on a daily basis, and it's quite unfortunate to see. Since the beginning of the year, we have had a lot of people dying. We have a lot of cases being reported, and we would want to know why all of a sudden we're having this surge of cases when we had tried so much to contain this virus. What is going on? Where are we losing it?
Yeah, at the moment, really the world is in a dangerous situation. We find ourselves almost tottering on the brink of a terrible catastrophe. It's because we have this virus. This is a new virus, unknown virus, which appears to have come from animals into human beings. And it is behaving in a pandemic way, which is it kills a lot of people. It coming in waves. So usually the first wave of such pandemic, people relax. It's quite in a mild form. And when it comes back, it has changed its structure and mutated and become very strong and killing people. So we are now in a second phase where we are faced with this virus, which has changed shape and is very deadly. And this phenomena happened about 100 years ago, almost in 1918. The same situation, amazingly, the human beings then, 100 years ago, behaved the same way as human beings now, which means first they underestimate the virus and allow it to progress and become a killing machine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned behaviors. I think this is one of the issues that is sort of fueling these cases that we are seeing these days. I remember a few days ago, I think I also wrote an article where I was calling on people to change their behaviors. And you've been at the forefront of changing, of calling for people to change their behaviors. How can people change their behaviors, and what exactly should they change right now? And you mentioned something like 100 years ago. I think we had the Spanish flu, right?
Yes.
Maybe one thing we should have learned from that. We should have learned from what happened then, and now we are faced with the same scenario, but we still carry on with whatever happened back then. What's going on? Why can't people change?
Yeah, it's because now, obviously, there's more economic activity than it was in 1918, but still then the flu still killed a lot of people, infected about 500 million and killed about 50 million people. So basically, what we haven't learned is that during a pandemic situation, it's a terrible situation. Same like those who read the Bible. We know the biblical plagues, bubonic plagues, and so forth. So when we have a pandemic situation, the whole world has to stand up and say that we are facing a terrible situation. So by merely making that we have just witnessed now in the festive season, because people didn't want, for example, to forego their festive season. They still wanted to have their Christmas. They still wanted to have their New Year's Eve celebrations in the middle of a terrible pandemic. So by allowing ourselves not to change behavior, we allow the virus to move from one patient to another, from one place to another. thereby gaining strength. So the critical behavior is that all of us have to notice that this is a serious thing, and we stop to think. Once we change that behavior, that the next person that you are talking to may actually be infected, or you may infect the next person. So that means we have to social distance. If you see the behavior, even if you go, people are not behaving properly. I'm sure even in your office, there's no one who is conscious all the time to say, 1 meter away, you're not going to breathe near me. I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to wash my hands. So that's what the virus is using. It's using that human weakness to allow it to move from one individual to another. So the first behavior is to notice that this is a serious situation. That's the first thing. The global leaders and the policymakers have to understand that this is a serious thing. Once they know that, they will therefore put policies like telling the people you have to forgo your Christmas, you can't cross the border, you can't do this. Once they do that, that's another change in the way of fighting this virus.
Okay, social distancing. Whenever I talk to people as a journalist, and ask why can't you socially distance, one of the things that come through is that most people use public transport and they use Zupco buses, right? And people are crowded there. If you have to go on the queues, they're crowded. If you have to go to the banks, there are queues there and you're crowded there. So can people really demystify the social distancing myth? Because that's what they're calling. They're saying it's a myth. We can't really do away with crowding.
No, I think right now, obvious, if we're to say everyone locked down at home, I mean, people need to go, the economy needs to function. But I think if people actually go, when they enter that Zupco bus, they social distance, they sanitize, they go inside the bus, put on their mask, the authorities that run the Zupco bus, make sure that people are seated a meter away, open the windows for air to come in. I think it can be done if people change their behavior. But at the moment, the moment they see a bus, they go and crowd. Or if they are asked to stop on a roadblock, when they are asked to go back, they go into a crowd. You see what I mean?
All right. Interesting. Given your experience in the health sector, what are your thoughts on the way we have responded, probably both at national level and maybe at metropolitan level?
Okay, when the first virus came, the first cases came, we did very well in the first instance. The first lockdown was very successful in that people noticed, because it was a new virus and we made a lot of noise, and we asked for a lockdown. The government listened very well and we locked down. And that made sure that the government then went on and they capacitated the health sector institutions. They bought equipment, they bought kits and so forth. At that time, we didn't have anything. And they developed some standard operation procedures and so forth. So the first wave was well managed, and people were really, they respected the virus then. And then after the first 21 days of the lockdown, people started coming back from the lockdown. They started paying little attention. And even if you tried to warn them, they became dismissive, abusive, and so forth. So the first wave, even nationally, it was well managed. And we went up to around August, where some days we didn't record any figures. And the restrictions were therefore were reduced. This was good because the government, I'm sure, wanted to make sure that the economy got a breather, because the economy got a battering in the first wave. So after that, then we didn't do very well, because once people were told that the restrictions were removed, people then took it as as if the virus was not there anymore. That's where we lost it as a nation, because you cannot blame one. It's the whole nation or the whole world, whereby people therefore relax. Even if you look outside, even overseas, they were even relaxed as allowing people into stadia to watch football and so forth. Those are the critical mistakes that the human beings made.
Right. Now we are in a lockdown, and you've been one of the people who have been very, very vocal again in calling for a lockdown. And this is prior to you having warned people that if you don't behave, if you don't change your behaviors, we end up getting to lockdowns, right? But do lockdowns work, or how do they work? How do they limit the spread of the virus?
Yeah, lockdowns are a sort of an emergency measure that you have to do, because they are introduced when the whole nation now, or the nations, they are facing a critical moment, that if you don't lock down, the virus spirals out of control. And when the virus spirals out of control, you overrun your own emergency, I mean your hospital facilities, you overrun your healthcare facilities, and people then die in large numbers. So you bring in lockdowns to try and slow down the spread of the virus, and give a breather, and re-strategize and slow it down, as I said. Without a lockdown, you are going to literally have a lot of massive deaths. So the lockdown is meant to curtail the human movement. I told you that the virus can't move on its own. It's us human beings who move it. So the lockdown is to try and scale down on the movement, scale down on the infecting the next few people.
But then again, the question arises, how do we balance between the lockdown and the economy? Because Zimbabwe already has a fragile health, a fragile economy. Also, we also have a fragile health system. So how do we balance the two?
Yeah, it's not me, but the government tries to balance the two, because they are faced with the allowing people to die. And when we say people, we are not saying Professor Ngwenya alone. We're talking at the ministers, everyone, politicians, anyone can die. So the government has to notice that, no, at this critical moment, we have to lock down, because if we don't, we are effectively letting people die. Economies, yes, economic will suffer. But if the economy can always be revived later. Imagine if you killed all your people, and then let's say you are the president and you are left with the economy alone. Will you be able to run the economy? No. So the people become more important than anything else. That's why then the economy becomes secondary. The people's lives becomes number one priority. Like right now, the people's lives are number one.
All right. Now we are faced with what is known as what are they calling it? The new variant, right, to the COVID-19. Please, can you explain to us, because there's been little or minimal information about it, especially from the top. We haven't really heard much about it. What is it exactly? Because I think it's there next door in South Africa, it's there in the UK, I think it's spreading across countries, but we don't know much about it. How different is it from the current coronavirus that we have?
Yes, what happens is viruses need to survive, because if they don't survive, they will run out and they are wiped out. So what they do is they will change their structure. So this new variant has changed its structure. When it gets into your body, it is called spikes. The coronavirus is called coronavirus because it's got this coron. It's a round thing around it. So those spikes are the ones that actually attach to the human being. So what it has done is it has made some changes in that round thing which attaches to the human being. So now once it's made changes or mutations, it attaches more faster and more efficiently than before. That is a survival tactic for the virus. It wants to survive. So it's now it attaches more. So if you went into a room where there was somebody, in the first wave, you probably not get infected. But in the second wave, you are most likely going to be infected because the virus is more attachable to you and more transmissible. So you get that point.
Yes.
So it's a similar coronavirus, but it has changed the structure where it attaches to the human being.
Okay, we hear that it is more deadly. It stays in the air for longer. Please, can you just explain to us how deadly is it? Who does it affect? Because I think with the current strain that we have, children were less likely to be affected, and probably their mortality rate was also lower than adults. So with this one, please explain to us who is at risk.
Yes. Now, what used to happen is it used to the old virus, the first wave. Let's just call it the first wave. It used to attack people with comorbidities, people with hypertension, with diabetes, with taking some ARVs, cancer patients, and so forth. And those were about 50 up to 80 were very high risk groups. But now with this new change, now with this virus having changed structure, there are now reports that no, actually it's killing even younger people, because now it's changed its structure. It's nobody is now said to be, almost everyone now is at high risk of this virus, because it's not going to look for old people only. Even young people, it's killing young people. So it's I will say everyone now must consider themselves as a high risk of being killed by this virus. Don't say because you're a teenager, because the new ones, the reports from South Africa and UK, they are actually more, because teenagers have been indulging in high risk behaviors and not social distancing. And they find that the teenagers are now actually being suffer a lot from this virus. So the other critical thing about this virus is an unknown virus. We don't know what it's going to do next. So when you have vaccines, and so we don't know. It's an unknown thing.
All right. Still on that, and locally, are we tracking it? If so, how are we tracking it?
Yes, I've heard there's a microbiology and the virology department in Harare. They are probably trying to track it, but I don't think they've got to a stage of actually isolating the variant. We are still using clinical experience and to say what used to happen in the clinical picture in the first wave, where most people were asymptomatic, they will recover and so forth. Whereas now we are seeing people becoming more sick and actually dying. In the first wave, there were a few people who died, but now the death rate is increasing. So from clinical deductions, because we don't have high-tech laboratory things to be checking with, we can say that the virus, this new variant is around here in Zimbabwe, because it's so close to South Africa, and people drive over the border very quickly. So from the clinical picture that is being seen on the ground, it appears that yes, indeed, this variant is here.
Mm-hmm. But still on that again, do we have like confirmed cases, maybe one or two that have been confirmed to be carrying this virus? No.
No, in Zimbabwe we haven't had. They haven't announced anything. The authorities, as far as I'm concerned, they have not announced anything. There were reports that they are tracking it. All right. What I'm telling you, we are using clinical information. We are using clinical experience to say the way how this behavior of this, what we are seeing now, from our experience from the first wave and our experience now, this probably this new variant is here, because it's one. Look at the cases. What has happened in Harare? We are having hundreds of cases being reported in one day, which never used to happen before. And you are seeing deaths all over, which never used to happen before.
That's quite sad, because we're looking at the statistics right now. I think over the past 2-3 days, we have recorded over 1,000 cases, not just in Harare, but I think in Zimbabwe, and we have recorded close to 12, 13, 15 deaths over the last 2-3 days alone. Whereas back then, I think we used to record 1 or 2 deaths and probably 10 or less cases. And this again tells the whole story about where we are headed as Zimbabwe. Right now, let me come back to the current strain that we have, the well-known coronavirus that we've always had. Right, there've been a lot about it, especially on its treatment. Right, a lot of people are using different methods to treat it. Is there like a conventional way of treating home remedies, using home remedies? Is there a conventional way of treating the coronavirus? If so, what would you recommend to someone who is suffering from the virus right now?
It's difficult. Viruses really don't have any treatments. And traditionally, people have used all sorts of things of steaming and so forth. As a doctor, really, I wouldn't recommend home steaming. You will do it if you don't feel any symptoms. The moment you feel unwell, you should see a doctor. especially now with this new variant where people are in a matter of days they are dead. I wouldn't encourage anyone to be steaming at home. If they are not well, they should see a doctor who will check them and think. Because there's also reports of people suddenly collapsing dead who were previously well and so on. So we are entering into a unknown world. Those who want to steam or do other remedies, it's fine. But if they can immune boost their systems with the common over-the-counter medicines like zinc and vitamin C tablets and so forth, that's fine. They can do it because viruses don't have any treatment. So we've been using complementary treatments. That's fine. But to say we have a treatment, I'm going to do this difficult. Better you see a doctor before you complicate, because that's one thing we are seeing clinically. People are coming to hospitals too late when they are sick and cannot be saved.
I think one of the issues, Professor, why people are not going to hospitals is there's talk that hospitals are not adequately equipped to deal with coronavirus. And I think one government official recently tweeted that government hospitals mainly, they are overwhelmed. Is this the true picture from, let's say, Mpilo Hospital? How prepared are you?
No, I think a hospital is always better than being home. If you are not well, go and see the doctors. They will decide and tell you where to go and what facilities are there. Rather than staying at home, saying you are fearing to go, because you are not going to get anything by staying at home. You are actually going to deteriorate. So that's my advice. Say no, go and see the doctor and you see the facilities. In terms of preparations and so forth, one thing you should understand right now, no one has ever been prepared for this virus, and no one is any successor on this virus. Even people with money, with big hospitals, are struggling in England and in America. So you can't really say how prepared are you. There's nobody who's prepared for this virus. The only people who have done very well are the Chinese government. When this thing broke out, they did the proper thing. They locked down. They built 2 big hospitals very quickly and separated everyone. And they seem to have managed this thing very well. The rest of the world, there's no one who is ready. Everybody's struggling, whether you have got facilities or you don't have facilities. It's a terrible virus.
All right. I would want to read out, let me just go through it right now. There's a question that has come through, and the person says, I would like to know about the medicines which are being prescribed. There's an antibiotic debate which some local doctors are administering, but others are saying that it is a scandalous prescription, as antibiotics are not for viruses but infections. Please help us through this.
Yes, I think there's a limited role in antibiotics. They won't kill the virus, but what they do is for example, if you went and you are having a cough, they use the antibiotic to prevent a superimposed bacterial pneumonia on top, because you may end up, because the virus is a bad virus. It causes your lung to have a glue-like substance inside. It's very bad. So then the bacteria then also grows on top. So the doctors are trying to remove these other bacterial infections, so that you don't have to now have to fight 2 bugs, the virus and the bacteria. So if they do indeed, you have been assessed and been prescribed, don't self-prescribe the antibiotic on your own, because it's not good. It's going to affect some of your immune system. So you should only take what is been prescribed by the doctor.
All right. Okay. Now let's move on to the vaccinations that are there, the vaccines that are there. I think we've seen all over the world. Some people are starting to get the vaccination, and in Africa, I believe we haven't had any. I think I was reading somewhere where South Africa will probably start administering one in March, and in Zimbabwe, I think the president recently said that you will look into it. It's something that is under discussion, right? What is your thoughts on the approved vaccines right now, and which ones would you say these would work best for Zimbabwe, and probably for the southern region?
Yeah, you see, vaccines for us in Africa will be very difficult to acquire. One, we are at the tail end of the queue to buy them. And 2, the logistics of moving them. The current one that they are having in America and Britain has to be stored at -70 degrees, so forth. And when it comes, it is being administered in big holes, and so people have to travel. So it will probably not be that accessible to many of our rural communities, the vaccine, and it's a bit expensive as well. So the current these vaccines shouldn't cause our population to distract from the preventive measures, because we don't have the luxury of buying vaccines. And if you have seen my recent comment to the TV station here, that the viruses have an ability to actually change their structure and render these vaccines irrelevant. So let's not put our thoughts on just seeing the vaccine as a blue injection coming from heaven to save us. No, our own behavior as Africans, mainly here, is our behavior is what's going to determine whether we are going to live or die. These vaccines can come, like I told you, that when that spike now, what happens with this spike? Your body will, they say the vaccine is based on that spike of protein for the virus. So when the body is injected, it produces antibodies. To say next time when the proper virus comes, those antibodies are going to fight. It has to be like a horn lock. The antibodies and the virus lock, and then the antibodies neutralize the virus. So in this case, where this new variant has changed its lock horn, and we've got viruses which have been developed months before, they may not lock, and that's why my concerns about these viruses not being effective in the future. So you see, even the virus that is being in Europe, if it were brought here and we have allowed the virus to change its structure, it will render the virus irrelevant. So we have to make sure that we change our behavior and make sure that we survive on easy things. This is basic stuff. If you don't allow the virus to move from one person to the other, and if Professor Ngwenya dies, you bury me with my virus and I don't give it to the next person. That's the way how we should do the basic things. The virus, the vaccine, which is going to be good for our setting, should be a virus that we can move well in logistics terms, is stored in a normal fridge, low temperatures, that everyone has a fridge all over. It won't be a problem with having special fridges. So that will make it very accessible to the people in rural communities and moving it around our terrain. It should be a vaccine that is also affordable, because if the virus is too expensive, it may not be affordable for our settings here. It's difficult to name the viruses by the vaccines by their names, because the companies may feel that we are undermining their vaccines. But broadly, the vaccines are those ones that are of need minus 70 degrees Celsius storage, which will be a terrible way for us here in Africa to have fridges. We don't have many such fridges. So we need a vaccine which can be stored in a normal fridge and is cheap and accessible. And also that we make sure that it is going to be relevant to the new variant, because the new variant, the virus has changed its structure. And if there is no lock-on between the antibodies and the virus, will become irrelevant. The vaccine, will become irrelevant.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that. And thank you so much to everybody who's watching. We appreciate you. There are a few questions that have come through. Some of them I might not read them, but some of them I'll read them out to you, Doc, before we go, so that maybe you can respond to them. But one of the issues that I came across was that there are some vaccine making companies who are saying that we might not be able to produce vaccines for Africa. Doc, do you think maybe this is the time that Africa needs to wake up and start producing its own vaccines and not wait for Europe, for America to produce something for us?
Definitely, Africa. Definitely. 2 days ago, when I spoke about these vaccines not being relevant here, there was an outcry, because now the people can't accept that an African can think that way. So we must start respecting our own African thinking, our own ways of making life. I've already told you that we are at the tail end of a vaccine to be sold to us. Right now, if you can show me one African country which has started vaccinations, just one country? There's none. So we are not being prioritized. We need to have young people like you who will think about having our own vaccine, investing in our. We can come together, for example, as a SADC region and have a research center here. We've got the brains. The brains are around. We just lack the technology and the money. And we can do it because now this vaccine thing is just producing a lock-on antibodies, your body to stimulate a body, to produce antibodies so that when the proper virus comes, it's a simple process which we can do. So that's a valid point. We need to first respect our own selves, because if we don't respect our own selves, criticizing, abusing our own professionals, and then you expect people to come and produce a vaccine for you here while you're sitting.
All right. Also, one other thing is the indigenous knowledge systems that we have here in let me talk about Zimbabwe, right? We have got traditional healers, we have got traditional medicines. How far can they go to ensure that people are safe, people are recover from the virus?
It will be difficult, traditional medicines now to be brought, because the virus, this virus actually attacks the main organs. It attacks, one of them is the kidneys. So you're going to have kidney failure. And then once you take, because our concoctions, I grew up in the village. Our concoctions are not measured in milligrams. So you may be given a teaspoon, but actually that teaspoon is getting a huge dose of things. And that can cause your kidneys to pick up and actually, accelerate your death. So I think for now, this virus, not to ingest too much of our concoctions, because it's an unknown virus, a new virus. We shouldn't be pouring in other things.
Okay, I will take contributions and questions here for you, Doc. Anesu Emmanuel Machikwa, he says, prevention is better than cure. That's an old saying, which is very relevant. I think they're agreeing with you. Nkosana Mpini Dube, he says, well spoken, Prof. Ngwenya. We need to stick to the earlier route of adhering to preventive measures because we are at the tail end of vaccine acquisition. I think this is also one thing that you're also talking about. Okay, this is Njabulo Bantu Ngwenya, and he says, what? Bronchi, what? This is medical stuff. Now I can't be able to read this. Maybe, Doc, you can read if I put it on your screen.
Okay, yes. All right. No,
can you see that?
I think with this new virus, I'm open to people trying all sorts of things as long as they are safe. And once they can prove to us that yes, indeed, it can save mankind, it's fine. There are lots of things that you can try.
Okay, that's interesting. Lloyd Cassie, he says our research capacity is very weak. More research-based evidence is needed. Johnny Mchenje, thank you for following. Bernard Tabonga Wande, he says, Professor Zakuda Kunamata Kuru, I think he's saying we need to be prayerful. This is also one thing, Prof. We have seen a lot of people praying about it, right? Yes, we need divine intervention, and we've seen a lot of churches breaking lockdown protocols, saying that we're praying for the virus to end. How far can religion go in as far as eradicating this virus?
Religion should play a part in teaching people to be disciplined and teaching people to listen to medical advice. The virus is also an organism, possibly made by God, since all organisms are made by God. So it's also looking for food. So we can pray, no problem, but we have to follow the basics that I've said. There's no substitute for basics. If you inhale the virus, or if you put the virus in your mouth, or it enters your eyes, it's going to attach inside your body and start a reaction and want to multiply and produce children who will infect more human beings, and the cycle goes on and on. That's a simple, basic thing. We need to stop the virus from multiplying. We can stop it. We can't stop it by praying. I mean, God will intervene, but this thing has come to us. We need to do the social distancing, the sanitizing, and so forth. We can pray for us to have success, but the churches should teach people to be disciplined. Like I said, these people who are going to survive this virus are going to be very disciplined people who are going to make sure they social distance, they follow the rules, they play by the rules. They were going to survive. the rest of the people who disregard these rules are going to die.
Well, I'm a big follower of yours on Twitter, and for a very long time, you've been saying that, you've been predicting rather, that there will be a deadly second wave, and this is where we are today. Some of the people called you an alarmist, right? But today we are here. Do you feel vindicated?
Yeah, I'm not really happy about being vindicated, because being vindicated means I've lost a few of my compatriots. It would have been nice if I became a liar, then nobody died. You understand? This virus, like now where we are, yeah, I mean, we lost some compatriots, so I don't want to be happy over compatriots' deaths. So one thing now, from going forward, I will continue. Actually, what I use is a lot of planning ahead, thinking, reading, and predicting. So there's a way. It's not just that I will be dreaming or anything, but it's a way of predicting things. Like now, what we need to do going forward, we need to be very careful, because if we mess up this time, there's no way back. There's no way back. We're going to lose a lot of people. So we have to be very careful. So I will continue. People abuse me on Twitter and so forth, but I will continue, because I feel that there are a few other followers who are following religiously, who want to live, who still don't want to die yet, and they are listening and they follow the things. Some of the predictions I did, even if you look back as way back as October, I mentioned about this virus changing form and mutating and coming in a deadly way in October.
Yes, I remember that. All right. In Europe and other countries, we have seen a third wave. Do you predict one?
Yeah,
for us in Zimbabwe?
Definitely. What happens is, like now we have messed up a little bit and allowed the virus to take root in our society. This lockdown, as I said, we're going to slow down the infection, but the infection won't go away completely. And then the people are obviously going to start crying, wanting to come back to do economics. And there will be another wave. And a wave is seen after people relax. Because at the moment, there's no treatment to eradicate this virus. This virus is here for months, years to come. It's not going anywhere. And the vaccines that are coming, they're coming very slowly. And we are hearing Africa is being promised next year down the line. Even if we were to vaccinate, the virus, are we sure it's going to be 100% effective? And for the viewers, actually, for us to have herd immunity, to say we are now safe from, but we need to vaccinate at 67 to 70% of the population. So if you calculate in Zimbabwe, that's almost, we need to vaccinate almost 10 million Zimbabweans. And most people live in rural settings. So the logistics of vaccinating people, and at the end of the day, if the virus has already changed, there's another virus, we need to develop another vaccine, do the new vaccinations. So once we relax again, there will be another wave coming. So until the people develop immunity on their own, or the virus weakens. So this is going to take years. The Spanish flu that I told you killed 50 million people took more than a year. So this coronavirus is almost coming to a year or so. In Zimbabwe, it started in March. Yes. So yes, indeed, I can predict with some sort of degree of accuracy that indeed there will be another wave, a third wave.
This is not good news, and this is where we say people need to really change their behaviors and adhere to what is best for us all. But then again, the question arises: yes, we have got a lockdown right now, and I'll go back to Lloyd. He says, "Are lockdowns really effective, or we should learn to survive with the virus?" And I will add, Doc, now that we are in this second lockdown, what's next after the 30 days? What do we do?
Yeah, so what happens is the government is going to monitor, obviously. Right now, if the government didn't put any lockdown like this, another listener who's saying that the lockdowns don't work. So effectively, what then we need to do will be to invest in coffins and graves, because the virus kills. And then that means it will kill anyone until we don't know who will remain. That means a lot of people will die. A lot. Millions of people will die. Here in Zimbabwe only, millions. So we can't go down that route. So the government, obviously, is going to assess the situation, see how after 30 days it's going to be like. If they still, if the cases have gone down, we have behaved very well, and the cases have gone down, they may maintain the lockdown the way it is, or they may reduce the restrictive measures. If indeed the virus by then is spiral out of control, because I can see probably the people won't listen, will spiral out of control. There will be actually stricter lockdowns, more painful lockdowns, many more painful lockdowns, whereby people will have to be quarantined by force in their own homes for their own safety. That means it's a terrible thing. Military-led, we have to put the military to come and help people and put them in their homes. Because by then people will be dying. There won't be any solution. We don't want this hard lockdown. We call it very hard lockdown. It's very cruel. Because it will be now a matter of death, doing or dying. So let's behave properly and not invite upon ourselves a very hard lockdown. And the hard lockdown may last 3 months because the situation will be dire.
All right. Again, maybe the other part of Lloyd's contribution, you were saying, should we learn to survive with the virus? Have you reached that stage?
No. We can't learn to survive with the virus because we don't have any defense to this virus. And even the people who have been infected in the first wave, the virus is infecting them. So I've already said, if you want to leave everything to nature, we are going to kill a lot of people. And we are just going to be investing in graves and coffins. What kind of a nation is that? What kind of a government can let its own citizens just buying coffins and graves? We're going to kill a lot of people, millions, including the listener is at risk of dying.
All right. I think I'll take you back to what you were saying, and there's a question that has come here from Jabulo Ngwenya, and I think most of what he's asking, you mentioned about it. How do you balance the economy and lockdowns? For the sake of time, we'll leave that out. And then he goes on to say, don't you think the government is using these lockdowns as a way of controlling people as they are struggling to run the country? I think it's a political question, but I would want you to talk about the social part of it, right?
Yeah. Anyway, the government is the people who vote in the government is always there to control the people. Before there were no governments and people were just living in the mountains like nothing. They would do anything. If they wanted to kill you, they would just kill you. So the government is there for our own good. Otherwise, people just come in and say, oh, you professor, I want to kill you. So the government is there to protect people. It's not being, I don't know, because I don't have evidence whether they are using it for political reasons. But when we ask from our own clinical point of view to say, government, please, let's have a lockdown. We are worried about the people's lives. And we are worried that government has to. And the economy, obviously, there are people who are vulnerable in this lockdown. There are people who are the elderly, the people who are self-employed, they are having suffering. But the calculations have been made to say, okay, this hunger for 30 days and facing imminent death, what is better? To be buried with a full stomach full of oranges, or to starve and drink water and eat a few rubles and what. So it's all that has been calculated to say at this moment, the best way for the country is lockdown.
Interesting. Bonis Jason Mube, he says, Professor, you make too much sense. My Vele is very rusty. Please forgive me if I missed out.
No, okay, I've been there since March 19 March, before the first case was declared here in Zimbabwe. I was already making noise.
Okay, so there you have it. But the prof was there, and like I said earlier on, he's there on social media. He's there on Twitter, and his warnings are just there for everybody. They're just telling. You can just see that we need to really change our behaviors. Again, back to what we talked about, Prof, and I think it's time Africa invest on its tech technologies, I think, and we put into practice the science we are teaching our young scientists. I think Zimbabwe has been hit by a lot of brain drain. It's very good to note that we have one doctor, and like you said, we can't mention names here, but we have got one doctor who was part of one company that produced vaccinations. But looking at the state of our economy, are we in a position to retain that skill, those skills that guys out there have, to bring them back and start our own thing here?
Yeah, I think obviously those who are ruling and policy making, they are trying to make concerted efforts to bring back brain drain. I was one of the people who was brain drained out, but I decided to come back again. So I was a brain gain. So it's possible for you to brain gain people by some voluntarily, like myself, who just decided that Africa was my best. And there are a few that will be incentivized by money. So I'm sure the government is doing it in some developmental stages. They are doing this in developmental stages. There will come a time when they are going to try and lure the brains back here, which will be very welcome. As I said, there's lots of things in Africa, but we lack just a few things, and we will be home and dry. Just a few things. We have lots of Zimbabweans are all over, and they're doing a lot of good jobs there, fantastic, and they are involved in a lot of development. So you can imagine, actually, I think there's a country which did this and they brought back its brand and developed very well. It's China, actually. They sent in 15,000 graduates to America, and they came back to their country. In 1949, China was just full of rice fields and so forth. Now it's a giant because its people are very proud of their own country, and they bring back the brains and develop themselves. So maybe there'll come a time when the diaspora also thinks that way and comes back, storming back to develop their motherland.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll take the last three contributions and then we can wrap it up, Prof. The first one is from my boss, Nigel Mkame, and he says, "We're listening, Prof. Tripama 1. I think this is a shared sentiment by a lot of people that we are sort of in a big mess. We are in a conundrum, and this is also something that you agree on. And again, it borders to what you're saying. We need to change our behaviors. People need to listen to the government when it says, let's socially distance, let's maintain all these standard procedures that we need to maintain." And then Peter Mtabis, he says, "You're 100% correct, Prof. This COVID is real and it's killing people. It's high time people should listen." Again, behavioral change, I think that's one thing that we need to emphasize. And then Bonis, again, he says, "Our first line of defense is prevention." And prevention, Prof, please take us through prevention. How best can we prevent this besides the social distance? Are there any other ways that maybe you can prescribe to us? We are novices into this.
Yeah, no, it's like I've said before, this virus indeed, the people who survive it, the people who are going to be very careful, especially moving forward, not only in Zimbabwe, in England, in South Africa, and so forth. There are certain behavioral changes that you need to do. First, you've been told that we are living in a serious situation. And so that means you have to know whom we are going to meet and what we are going to do and so forth. There are certain things you have to forego, like going to crowded beer halls and so forth. Like now you see government banned all the bars and beer halls. Because when you go and drink and share a beer can or water with your friend, the virus can also be moved from through the mouth. So even if you buy beer and go and hide under a tree and drink with your friends, your behavior is high risk. You can actually end your life. So we must change the way we do things. We must change, and we think about this virus all the time. If you think about this virus all the time, you will know that the next person may be carrying a virus. Don't allow yourself to be invited to parties, clandestine parties. I know people right now, there's a lockdown, there are roadblocks, and behind the roadblocks, people are going around, going to do all sorts of things. Same thing with churches. They'll phone each other, "Come, let's pray." They go and pray, they are aggregating themselves, and actually they think that they are doing it to hide away from the police. No, they're actually killing themselves. So those are the behaviors that we are calling for, that every individual and every family unit has to take charge of itself, because the government is not going to come and check that the virus is not entered your nostrils. This government has no capacity. You are the one, you, Professor Ngwenya, who went and inhaled the virus. So it's down now to individual level. Government has put enabling things like lockdowns to say, okay, we reduce the amount of traffic or people around you. We lock down the country, we do these restrictions, we close down certain shops, bars and so forth. Now it's down to the individual to change.
All right, interesting. Prof, we want to conclude, but one more issue, which I think is very critical. The issue of information dissemination. Yes, you and I are privileged to know quite a lot, maybe through research. You being in the middle, in the medical fraternity, you know a lot of these things. In any, to know it was a research or using my journalism skills, right? But there are folks in marginalized areas, and there's been an outcry about the way government is disseminating information to marginalized communities. What can be done to bring us, us who are at the forefront, and those that are there in the background, those who do not know these terms, variant, the new variant, they don't know what this is, right? How do we fuse them into what we know and we move together?
Yeah, I think now, the government will be encouraged to first, because there's a lot of denial here about this coronavirus. You know, the number of people I've met, they're saying, no, this thing was brought by God. No, this thing won't kill us. First, there's that denial phase. So the government has to do quite a lot of information in major languages in the country to educate people right down to the villages. So if they do that massive information in their languages, and they should also, because people think it's a myth. There's even, I'm amazed, even in Europe, people think that this COVID virus is a myth. You know, it is a creation. So I think government has to be open and actually show the people are sick from COVID. This is the COVID burial. This is, it's open. Then people would understand. Because right now people think that there's no COVID. It's just made up.
All right. I know I said the last one, and I'm sorry, but this is the last one. I promise. The vaccine, probably it comes to Zimbabwe this year or whenever it comes. Should people take it? Should people be aware of it? Who should get first priority when it comes to motherland?
Yes, I think if the government gets an approved vaccine, we should take it. I will encourage, as a doctor, everyone to be vaccinated against the major thing. And the people who should have it, first of all, it's our foot soldiers. We should go for the health workers, because we are very well short-staffed here. So we need to vaccinate the health workers, because we don't want them to fall sick. And when they leave work and we lose hours of work, more people will die in the absence of the doctor or the nurse. So I will put health workers together with people with comorbidities and the elderly. I will go for those ones first. And the elderly and anyone with comorbidities and our health workers, they'll form the core group, the first to be vaccinated.
All right. As you go, what are your ways to probably someone who's feeling sick right now from the COVID-19? Probably someone who's also lost a relative, or maybe someone who is in the middle of it. What are your last words to them?
Yeah, those ones who have COVID, my advice to them is that one, they should try and take some zinc and some vitamin C and vitamin D, and also sleep most of the time, because those people who are affected, they feel very tired, because this thing causes a lot of reactions in the body. They should sleep at least 18 hours a day. Just sleep and give your body time to sleep and rest. And if you feel unwell, you call in your doctor and get checked up. And we are sorry about those who have lost their relatives. You know, a lot of people, tears, they never had the Christmas and New Year because they're crying. You know, wants to leave a loved one. We call them statistics, but to someone it's a father, it's a mother, it's a sister. It's very terrible. It's a permanent pain. That's why I've been making so much noise to try and reduce this pain to the people. because it's a permanent. Even if you lost your very close person, you survive. It's going to live for the rest of your life. So we are very sorry that people have lost their relatives. And the next challenge is that us, the ones who are still breathing now, let's make sure that we don't breathe in the virus. We've been talking for a length of an hour or so. We are going to continue to talk on social media, on radio, on TV, and so forth to spread the word so that less and less of our compatriots die. Because we need the people. We need them to develop the economy. We need them to develop the country. Without them, we will be poorer and poorer.
Maybe just add on to what you're saying. There's been a statement that has been circulating these days that the numbers have become names of people we know, like the statistics that you're talking about, right, are now people that we know right now. Because back then it was always, maybe there's someone, that people have died and we didn't know anyone. But now out of the 20 or 100 people that are there, you probably know 1 or 2 people who have been infected, and probably on the death list as well, you know 1 or 2 people who have also died. So we encourage everybody to always take care of themselves, take care of your loved ones, so that at least we are all safe. At least we move together through these hard times. Doc, Prof, I keep on calling you Doc. I don't know if that is okay. Is that okay? Is that your other title as well?
Yes, I use any.
Doctor, Professor,
No,
Professor, Doctor.
I always feel like a head boy. I grew up in the village. I always feel a head boy.
Okay. All right. All the same, we would really love to thank you, Professor Ngwenya, for coming through to the program. I would say you have become our Dr. Anton Fauci, right? Because you're always giving us these tidbits of knowledge as we try to combat this virus. But all the same, thank you so much. I know I know you're a busy person. I know you've got other things to do, but you chose to be with us today. And we really want to thank you for that. This was our first program for the year, and we'd love to thank you again. And thank you to the viewers who keep on tuning in. Please stay at home, sanitize, mask up, and socially distance wherever you are. That said, my name is Lovejoy Ngwenya. The program was Meet the Press with Lovejoy. Join me in other programs. It's bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.